Egypt, land of pharaohs and pyramids, where time itself seemed to bow before the weight of millennia. Yet by the mid-4th century BC, this once mighty civilization was a shadow of its former glory, its people yearning for a savior. From the north, a young king, barely out of his teens, swept across the known world, conquering all in his path. Alexander the Great. His eyes were set on the Persian Empire, and Egypt lay directly in his path. But what awaited Alexander in the land of the Nile was not the fierce resistance he expected. Instead, he found a people desperate for liberation, a culture ripe for transformation, and a destiny that would intertwine his name with the very soul of Egypt. Forever. This is the story of how a conqueror became a pharaoh, a god, and a legend. This is the story of Alexander in Egypt.
By the mid-4th century BC, Egypt was a land where time seemed to stand still. The ancient pyramids, like the step pyramid of Djoser at Saqqara, had watched over the desert sands for over 2 millennia. The legacies of pharaohs like Nefertiti, Akhenaten, and Tutankhamun were already 1,000 years old, their names whispers on the desert wind. Yet Egypt's glory had faded due to foreign invasions and internal strife, leaving its people yearning for revival. In 332 BC, as the sun bathed the Nile in gold, a young Macedonian king named Alexander appeared. Barely in his 20s, Alexander the Great had already carved a path of conquest across the known world. His eyes were set on the Persian Empire, which spanned from the Aegean Sea to India. In just 2 years, he had crushed Persian power in battles like Issus, defeating King Darius III, and had taken the cities of Tyre and Gaza. As Alexander approached Egypt's borders, anticipation hung in the air. The land was under Persian rule, governed by satraps who had oppressed the Egyptians. Memories lingered of Persian kings like Cambyses II and Artaxerxes III, accused of desecrating temples and killing the sacred Apis bull, an affront to Egyptian faith. The Egyptians, burdened by these offences, watched as Alexander's army neared. But instead of resistance, Alexander was welcomed with open arms. Egyptian priests and nobles saw him as a liberator who would free them from Persian domination. The Persian governor surrendered without a fight. As Alexander entered Memphis, the traditional capital along the Nile, the city erupted in celebration. Amid Memphis's grandeur, with its towering temples and bustling bazaars, Alexander showed wisdom beyond his years. He honored his Macedonian heritage by hosting Greek athletic games and musical contests, filling the air with music and cheers. Yet he also immersed himself in Egyptian culture. Most profoundly, he paid homage to the Apis bull, a sacred animal symbolizing kingship and divinity. In the sanctuaries of Memphis, Alexander approached the priests of Apis. The bull, adorned with divine symbols, embodied Ptah in life and Osiris after death. By sacrificing to Apis, Alexander did more than perform a ritual. He bridged 2 worlds. The Egyptians saw in him a ruler who respected their gods and traditions, a stark contrast to past Persian sacrilege. Word spread along the Nile. The new pharaoh honored the old ways. This gesture resonated deeply with the people. In the Serapeum at Saqqara, where massive granite sarcophagi housed mummified Apis bulls, priests might have whispered prayers of gratitude. Though it's uncertain if Alexander visited these catacombs, his reverence left an indelible mark. As the sun set over the Nile, casting shadows across the temples, Alexander stood at destiny's crossroads. Egypt had embraced him, and he embraced its spirit. He was no longer just a conqueror, he was becoming part of Egypt's eternal story. But his journey was far from over. The whispers of oracles and the allure of divine favor beckoned him further. Greater challenges and revelations awaited. a path that would intertwine his fate with Egypt in unimaginable ways. With the Nile receding behind him, Alexander gazed toward the Mediterranean. An idea took root, a city bearing his name, standing as a beacon of knowledge and culture. On shores where sea met delta, he founded Alexandria. Meticulously planned with wide avenues and grand edifices, the city embodied a fusion of Greek and Egyptian aesthetics. It was to be a hub where scholars and merchants from all corners converged. Yet a deeper calling stirred within Alexander, a yearning to understand his place in the cosmos. Tales reached him of the Oracle of Amun at the Siwa Oasis, a mystical sanctuary deep in the Libyan desert where gods spoke through priests. Undeterred by the treacherous journey, Alexander led a small contingent across unforgiving sands. The desert tested them with scorching days and cold nights, but they pressed on, guided by omens and stars. At last, Siwa's verdant palms emerged like a mirage made real. Upon arrival, priests greeted Alexander with reverence, calling him the son of Amun, a declaration that shook him. Entering the sacred temple, he stood before the god's effigy, the air thick with incense and ancient weight. What transpired remains a mystery, but when he emerged, his countenance had changed. The divine had spoken, affirming his destiny not just as a king, but as a god among men. This revelation was more than personal enlightenment. It was a powerful tool. Proclaimed the son of Amun, whom Greeks identified with Zeus, Alexander's authority now had divine backing. This elevated status resonated in Egypt, where pharaohs were seen as gods on earth. Returning, Alexander's army rested along the Nile's banks. Soldiers mingled with locals, stories were exchanged, cultures intertwined. In spring 331 BC, with the Nile rising, Alexander prepared to depart. His gaze turned eastward toward Persia's remaining might, but Egypt had left its mark on him. Evidence of his impact endured long after. In Thebes, at Luxor Temple, artisans carved his likeness into stone. Within the holiest chambers, Alexander was depicted not as a foreign conqueror, but as a traditional Egyptian pharaoh. Clad in royal regalia, he offered tributes to gods like Amun-Ra, his features immortalized alongside ancient rulers. These images were more than art. They symbolized a new era. Alexander's embrace of Egyptian customs signified a cultural fusion that would shape the region for centuries. Egyptians saw in him a continuation of their divine lineage. Greeks found in Egypt a wellspring of wisdom. As years unfolded, Alexandria flourished beyond imagination. The great library amassed knowledge from across the world, becoming a beacon of learning. The lighthouse of pharaohs rose from the harbour, its light guiding sailors, a metaphor for the enlightenment the city offered. But fate is inexorable. At 32, Alexander's life was cut short, his vast empire left without its unifying force. In Egypt, however, his legacy endured. The Ptolemaic dynasty, founded by his general Ptolemy, continued the synthesis of Greek and Egyptian cultures. Cleopatra, the last of the Ptolemies, became a symbol of this enduring fusion. His footprints may have faded, but his influence is carved into Egypt's bedrock. The stories, monuments, and cultural tapestry bear witness to when history was forever altered. Alexander the Great became more than a name. He became a legend woven into Egypt's eternal narrative. If you were captivated by this journey, then prepare to be amazed by our next adventure. Join us as we delve even deeper into Egypt's enigmatic past, exploring evidence that hints at a technologically advanced pre-Egyptian civilization. We'll uncover startling discoveries at Osirian, Zoyet El Aryan, and the Serapeum of Saqqara, questioning everything we thought we knew about ancient Egypt. Witness the incredible alignment of the Giza pyramids with Orion's belt, and marvel at their precise construction, suggesting profound astronomical and engineering knowledge. We quote, "L uncover potential evidence of advanced tools and methods used in ancient Egypt." challenging conventional views and raising new questions about the capabilities of this ancient civilization. Don, quote Timis, journey to Egypt's enigmatic past.
In the boxes in places like the Serapeum, which is probably my favourite site, because there's literally miles of tunnels beneath Saqqara. So it's like a giant underground necropolis. Inside the Serapeum, you have 25 of these things, which are these single-piece, like 100-ton granite boxes. They're insane. It's absolutely insane. And this one in particular is in an off-limits area that we went into that's rarely seen by tourists. We couldn't make the box without developing specific tools to do it, because the way they'd make it is they'd cut like 5 slabs and then bolt them together, you know, like a floor and then 4 walls, and they'd bolt it together into a box. These are single pieces. So what's impressive about that is it's like you have to quarry this one block of stone and then dig it out. You have to dig all of the inside out, and some of the examples of precision in the Serapeum are absolutely remarkable. You have perfect 90-degree corners in some of the boxes, perfect 90-degree interfaces with the lids, and some of these walls maintain that geometry from like being 11 feet apart. Like, that's insane. Like, that's one of the major challenges of this is in designing and maintaining that type of relative geometry in a space where you can't afford to make any mistakes.